Hi there. Today I am making a card with some honeydew crafts stamps or stamp and die set, and I'm going to do it three ways. So I've got some watercolors out. I've got pencils, Polychromos, and I've got some pattern paper. And I'm going to do the same layout, but in those three different forms of crafting or techniques. So that was the idea, because I wasn't quite sure which one I preferred. So I've got my basic layout. I've tried out three ways, and I'm going to put them together. I'm going to show you how I stamped what I've done to make each one, but I've already made them, so I'm not necessarily going to make them again. So I'm just going to show you what I did. Yeah, and then that's where I thought I'd go today. So I've got some Versafine Claire out. I've got Shady Lane Hawthorn Rose, and I've got a Distress Ink Seedless Preserves. I've got Polychromos, Faber Castell Polychromos, earth green yellowish, middle purple pink, and what's this one? Magenta. And then for my watercolours, I use permanent rose, probably mixed with a little bit of cadmium red and alizarin crimson. And I'll make a green with lemon yellow, raw sienna and ultramarine, and maybe a touch of cerulean blue. So, and we'll see where that goes. So those are the colours that I tend to use when colouring in flowers, or pink flowers. So yeah, that's where we'll go with these. I've got Matthew Palmer Super Point Brush Small. I've got a generic, it's a Daler Rowney round that I always use for general crafting, and I'll just take it from there. So so for the first one, let's start with my pattern papers. Now what I did with these was I used Hawthorn Rose. I've taken a Graphic 45, very old set, paper pad, Bloom, very old collection, quite a few years ago now, but I bought a couple of them, and I still have an 8x8. And I think I've got some 12x12 left, so I've decided that I'm going to get them used rather than hoarding them, collecting dust. So I think, I'm not sure which one I used. I've taken a journaling card. I'm going to use that side. I've used the Honeydew Crafts Little Lilies and Leaves set, which is a stamp and die set. Don't need a stencil yet. Put that over there. And I cut out the small and medium size flowers, which is that one and that one. And I die cut those, and I just cut into them, so make them a bit more flexible. So I'll just show you what I did. I just need to take glasses off. So I just cut down into each petal and shaped it a little bit so it wasn't so obvious it was cut. Like that. and where I think I've not quite got it right, the dye right, it means I can take a little bit more off as well. There. And that means that I can do a little bit of shaping with it. So, and I stamped that with Versafine Claire Hawthorn Rose, just to give some detail to the pattern paper. So I've already done that one. And again, I've done that with the bigger size, the medium size one as well. I've just cut into them. So like this. See, I've just not quite lined that die up right, so I can take that off. Go right down there and get into there. Round that off. There we go, and then that's that one. So, right, put those over there for a second. And then similarly with the leaves, I've cut those out like that, and I did that, and I also stamped those with Shady Lane, so they are cut out. And all I did was I sort of twisted them in halfway, just to give them a little bit of movement, and that's all I've done, is sort of got hold of one each end and just sort of, without trying to, bigger one, you can probably do a little bit from the other end and sort of just manipulate it. You can spray it with a little bit of water, but that's it. They've just got a little bit of movement in them now. Yes, so where are we? Need that. As I say, I've taken one of the journaling cards, the pack they do, and I've chosen couple of papers. So this was, is that one I used? No, not that one. I'm not sure I've got any. I think that might have been the last sheet, whichever one it was. So I think it was that one I used. Let's have a look. So might have been from the 12 by 12. The leaves are definitely made out of that one, which I don't know if you can see it. It's quite small, but I made the leaves out of that one, and I think I made the I cut the flowers from one of the 12 by 12 papers, but I don't have any of it left by the looks of it, which was the aim. So right, and I think what I was going to do was then cut a piece of this, add the journaling card, and then add the papers. So I'll just go away and cut a bit of the paper, and this is the Plant Happiness design. Right. Right, okay, so I've cut this 4 3/4 by 6 3/4, and what I'm just going to do is, if I can find that, I'm just going to make sure I've flattened my edges, particularly the cutting side, so that they don't look all torn. And then I'm just to make sure, or just to give it a little bit of added dimension, and just to make sure there's no white edges, I'm just going to run down the side with some ink, and I've used peeled paint. There. Right, that's that, and then I will glue that to the card. Okay, that's done. So what I did with the flower, oh, let me just now, am I going to lift this up? No, I think we'll go straight on. And it's just as well they give you 3 or 4 in the pack of these journaling cards, because they really are very pretty, and you wouldn't want to use any of them if you couldn't have one for each side at least. Right, I think that's straight. Okay, so I've shown you how I did the leaves, and the flowers. If I just bring in I use an old mouse mat for this. Oh, let me just put the top on the glue. So this is what I've done. This is what they'll look like. So what I do is, I'll just do a small one, but it will be the same for both. So basically, with as large a embossing tool as I've got, I will just go soften the middle and then go around the edges, or vice versa, around the edges and then soften the middle. So, and that just breaks down the fibres, as I'm sure you might have watched many videos doing this. I'm just curving the edges. I'm going to turn it over and give the middle a bit of a roll as well. So, there. Of course, you could also make lots of flowers that way. I haven't quite done that one. Make a different kind of flower, more of a crocus or something, if you just did them that way. Right, for today. So then we need a little bit of glue in the middle. Maybe that should be enough, and then offset them and decide which way. I think it needs to turn a bit more. Yeah, like that. There we go. And then the last thing I did, but we'll have to set this to the side, or we can do it afterwards, is I used some 3D glue gel. Although no, actually I didn't. I used glossy accents. What have I done with it? Glossy accents. Here we go. I was hoping that it would stay more dimensional, but it didn't. so but I do use the same one again for consistency, so they don't look different. Okay, and some Cosmic Shimmer Sparkle Shakers. Well, let me just do this. Forget these have got a top on them. There. And then we'll just leave that aside to dry while we right, okay, so then I was thinking something like, oh, can't do that one yet, probably should have. I've got some acrylic glue. It's just I'm trying to use some of my old glues up. I have a big drawer of glues. I'm sure we all do it, where we buy glue and then in bulk, and then it never gets used. So I'm on a mission to use some of them anyway. Right, be a bit careful with this one. And that will go in there like that. Okay. And then I put in the leaves. Oops. So like that on there. Right, and that just needs a sentiment, which I will go away and find a sentiment and come back. Okay, so in the Bloom collection, or Graphic 45, what they usually release some chipboard type ephemera. So what I will use for this one is, which one should we use? I think we use Gardens Feed the Soul, and then that can sit there maybe, or in the middle, down here, and up here. No, I think we'll put it in the middle, across there like that. And for that I use this glue again. don't want to hide the butterflies, so I think about there looks good. Make sure it's in the middle. And then what I'm going to do is I've got the Liquid Pearls Hydrangea, and I think I'm going to just fill these holes, and I should have tested it first to make sure there weren't any air bubbles. Okay, right. And then that is, and I will probably do use another journaling card for the insert, just to give the back of the card a bit more stability. So yeah, so that's card technique method number 1, which is pattern paper and die cuts. And then just move those out of the way. So then this one was, let me just do those now. This one was coloured pencils, and yes, Polychromos. And all I've done around the edge is I used the seedless preserves with a blender to create a matte layer. So, and then that will sit on there. But just to show you what I did to make this layout, I took a piece of card, which, oh, here, no, that's the card blank. Right, I'm just going to cut another piece of card and I'll be back. Right, okay, so I've cut a piece that is, oh, let me just think, that was 4 5/8 by 6 5/8. I think, yes. So then what I did, I took the stamp, took the bit medium-sized stamp, just take that off, of the little lilies and leaves. We're using the same stamp set for all, and then I inked that with Hawthorn Rose, and I think I can't see in my original I was quite low down in the corner, but I think I might just bring it up a little bit for this one to there. So there we go, that's that. And then I stamped it again on masking paper and cut it out, and then where did it go? I think it might be that way. And then masked it off and stamped the little stamp each side. Again with Hawthorn Rose. I think what I did with, to try and make them set back a little bit, I actually stamped it off first on some copy paper, which again has, okay, not that, stamp it from that, right, won't need to stamp it off by the time I've faffed around. Right, so I just stamp it off on this, just lightly, and then stamp and again. I might have stamped it off too hard that time, and then we'll see what comes out. I might just That's all right. Okay. And then now, what I didn't like about the first one I did was I didn't like the colour of the leaves. They're a little bit too bright for me. So what I decided I'd do with this go was to try Shady Lane. Oh yes, that's the bit we need to do next. Try Shady Lane for the stamping, and a slightly earthier green for the colouring. So I just need to get my mask. This one was a little trickier. I think that way. Let's see how that looks. Yeah, that looks right. So then, here are the leaves. So this time we're going to. Oh, what have I done with that? Right. This time I'm going to use Shady Lane. So I do big one first, I think. Okay, and then similarly I shall do it a bit close there. Right, won't notice that by the time I've coloured it. And then we need to move the other mask. And find the this one again, stamp it off. There we go. So then we'll colour that in. Just need to be careful when pulling the mask off because the ink will still be wet. And you might see, well, you might not be able to see it on camera, but I can see I've just smudged a little bit of ink there, but that'll be fine. Okay, so then, as I say, I'm going to colour this in, so I will fast forward and put some music on, or yeah. Okay, so I think that's, for me, I prefer that to that colouring. So that is what I'm going to use. This one is what I'm going to use. But the last thing I need to do for this one is a little bit of stenciling. So I've got the Honeydew Crafts quilted stencil, and that's what I'm going to use here. I'm going to take seedless preserves. Whoops. Just change over my blending brush tool. And then just very lightly, whoops. Now I've made a mark on it. Go around the edge. Try not to get it on the flower. Oops. I want it quite light, I don't want it too dark. You may not even be able to see that. It's possibly even darker than I'd want it, but we'll go with it. There. Right. Okay, so you can see I've put a little mark on there, so let's see if we can get rid of that. Make sure I've got a clean brush. Don't think we're going to be able to do it. Right, let's not make that worse. So we'll wait for that to dry and we'll see if we can use the rubber to erase it out. In the meantime, I will find a sentiment and I'll be back. Right, so I've picked out the vintage floral corner and I'm going to use the birthday greetings. Right. Just help me to see if I can get this fairly straight on here. So we'll do that. I'll line this up down here. And black or hawthorn rose. I think we'll stick to, or maybe we'll do it in morning mist. Need to re-ink that, but we'll see. Yeah. Make sure that's well inked, and then I'm going to stick that up the top there. Make sure that's definitely, hopefully, didn't feel as though there was that much ink going on there, but I could be wrong. No, that's all right. I just think that grey is slightly softer than the black, so yeah. Right, is that? Let's see. think that's going to get that off. So we will just have to live with that. Not sure it's a place I can stick a butterfly or anything on it, so yeah. Right, these things happen. So next, a little bit of ink down here, so I'm just on the mat, so I'm just going to use a piece of card to put this together. All right, this is a pre-made card, so you'll always find they're a little bit different in length, because the idea being that you can easily open the card. So you'll always find pre-made card, or not always, but generally good ones will be slightly, one side will be slightly shorter than the other, being on the basis that you can open it. So just make sure, if that's the case, that you've got the longer side at the front, and then we can stick that together. Again, Pink Frog Crafts EVA glue. You do have a little bit of wiggle time, but it does grab quite quickly. So, honestly, making a right mess of this card because I can see there's a smudge here. So, we'll probably not end up using this, but, or I won't use this to send out to anybody. May make it again. Right. And there's only a very tiny border on this. I think I cut the matte layer at 4 3/4 and 6 3/4, no, yeah, 6 3/4. So, and only 1/8 of an inch for the border. Right, and again, I'd probably make an insert just to make the card a little bit more sturdy at the back. So that's number 2. And then finally, always my favourite, was a watercolour card. So I'll just tidy up a bit and grab the watercolour card, and I'll be back. Okay, so I've got a piece of watercolour card that is same size as the last card, 4 5/8 by 6 5/8. And I've taken the liberty of doing exactly what I did in the last card and stamping the medium sized flower, lily, and masking it off, and then stamping the small flower behind it, and then doing the leaves. So I did that in exactly the same way as I did the last one, but with this one I'm going to use watercolours, and I think I mentioned I've got Permanent Rose, which is here, or that bit there, that little blob there, with, I think I put in, we'll see when I get there, a little touch of alizarin crimson. And for the green, which turned a little brown, is, or was, lemon yellow and burnt raw sienna, and just a touch of that, I think, and then the ultramarine. So yes, so I'll make some more of that up and give my watercolours a little spritz to get them going. That one. And then we are good to go. Okay. Right. Hopefully got some water. I use my craft brush, sort of painting brush, to mix up the colours. I don't use my watercolour brushes to mix colours. So, oops, that needs some more water. Okay, and then I will colour these in and be back. Right, okay, so I've coloured those in, and then I'm just going to stamp the sentiment again. I'm going to use the same one as the previous card, if I can find it. And I think I'm going to use grey again. Definitely won't work that way round. Make sure it's well stamped because it's going on to texture card, or well inked. And then again, I think I'll stick to this top right corner. Oops. Hopefully I didn't. That's fine. And again, I think that grey, I'm not sure I'm very straight, but that grey I think is a lot softer than using black, so I'm quite happy with that. Right. Okay. I think, and then what I'm going to do is, I've got a little bit of pixie powders, Aubergine Dream. I don't know where you might get these from now, now that Creative Expressions have closed down. I guess it's looking for any stock, but I do recommend them. They go a long, long way. I bought these quite a long time ago, and well, there's plenty left in the little bottle. So we're going to just tap a little bit out. Don't need much. A little bit of water. I'm not spraying on the powders because they'll go everywhere. And then I'll get my brush. Could have actually used some of that. And these have mica in them, so I'm just going to dot around the middle to create the stamen, and that's pulled, so that won't. Let me just block that, which I quite like that effect. I'll do the same here. That hasn't pulled. Okay. Okay, so you may not be able to see it. So I've got a little bit of texture going on there. Clean off my brush. And then put this card together as well. So let me just find the base card. Again, same size. There we go. Oh, this one's, I just need to see if I can correct that. Okay. And I think same mat layer, 6 3/4. And all I've done with this, I took some of the pixie powders, mixed up some of the pixie powders that I used to do the centres of the flowers, and I ran it round with a paintbrush. A couple of times, so that there was some just to pull the matte layer into the from the colours I'd used on the card. So again, I've smudged the ink, the glue, so I'm just gonna right. So I'm just going to tidy up, and then I'll bring the other cards back in and see which one I like the most, and I'll be back in a moment. Okay, alright, so I just realised there was one last thing I was going to do, and that was to pop some glitter glue onto the card that I coloured in with pencils. And that is a Dovecraft. Again, it's quite old, I've had it quite a long time. Hopefully it'll still go. I did the other day, right, yeah. Which is, don't know what the colour is, rose. So I'm just going to dab on some of that for the stamen, and that will just bring in a bit of texture to add to the mess I made at the top of the card. So we all do it, don't we? Yeah, and that is one design 3 ways, and I think I actually like my dimensional card. You can see all the dimension on that card, and I think my graphic 45 papers have probably, for me, won the day. So yeah, I would make a little box envelope to go with that. I would add an insert to give it a bit more sturdiness at the back, and yeah, and this one I will probably keep as a sample. Yeah, I'm never going to send that out. I don't know if you can see the mess I made at the top there. Right, so thank you for joining me, and I'll see you again soon. Bye.